Good morning. This is Thursday, 5th of November, and I am calling this session of the Area Conference of East, West, and Central Africa to order. It is again a beautiful day in Nairobi. It is fresh outside. It is beautiful, and the company here in this venue is very pleasant, and I'd like to welcome you to this final day of our conference. I'm also welcoming our members who are online. Thank you again for joining us, and may you also find this conference as productive and pleasant as we are at being here in person today. An event that is offering us opportunities to discuss the work of this area. This is what we are here for. We've been here since Tuesday, and today we can continue doing that. I was pleased to have learned so much about the remarkable work done by the men when I listened to your reports yesterday. For you to continue on your path of success, we need to keep the area strong. And for the area to be strong, we need to strengthen the societies. So yesterday, I said the lifeblood of an organization is its membership. And therefore, I'd like to say I honor the membership of this area and all the contributions you are making to keep your society strong, but also to strengthen the work of ACWW. We are starting the program today with an exciting announcement and an introduction of the candidate for the area of the East, West, and Central Africa. We need strong leadership, and I am now pleased to hand over to Ms. Irene Chinje, who is joining us online, as she will be introducing the candidate for this area. So thank you very much. Good morning, Irene. I'm sure your face will appear on the screen. There it is. You look happy. You look fine. I'm very glad that you are able to join us this meeting, even if it is on the virtual platform. It's wonderful to have you in our presence. Please go ahead, if you would be so kind as to introduce the candidates.
Thank you, Mandy. Good morning, everyone, and happy to see you all up again for this last day. So, my dear members, as you know, I'm coming to the end of my second term as area president. It has been my deepest honor to represent you for the past 6 years, and I will do my best to continue these efforts over the next 7 months as we head to the Triennial World Conference. When the office circulated the call for candidates for area president, at the start of this year, there was not a candidate for the area president for East, West, and Central Africa. When the recall was issued to find a candidate, I was delighted that Claire Jetwa put her name forward. Claire has been a great help to me as area president. A great support and a great partner. From my visit to the East African Women's League to Kenya and to her participation at our last area conference in Kampala, Uganda, her participation at the last conference in Melbourne, and for encouraging the East African Women's League to work with us and host this 2022 area conference in Nairobi. I know that during this conference, the procedure for voting and elections at the World Conference will be discussed and explained. But please, let me say to you all, today, that Claire has my full support, and I'm proud that she will stand for elections to take over the mantle in our beautiful, proud area. Please remember, though the information will be circulated for the member societies to vote online, and it is absolutely essential that you do vote and use the opportunity to ensure that your voice is heard in electing a new area president and our board. I myself will be a candidate in this election as a candidate for Deputy World President. But for today, please, I ask you to give a warm welcome to Claire Jedwa and encourage you to support her as we move forward together. Claire, you have my support. I welcome you, and I'll stand by you every time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Irene, for the introduction of the candidate for this area. And now it is my pleasure to invite Claire to share a few words with us and to share with us her vision for the Let's make our voices heard. Let's stand together, make a difference and change the world. That is a real rallying call, and I hope and pray that with God's help and that of our members in the area, I can be a worthy representative of this part of Africa. Some of you may look at me and wonder, but I have to tell you that although I was born in the UK, I have lived in East Africa for most of my life, and I pledge to serve my fellow Africans to the best of my ability. I look forward to traveling to parts of this continent that I have never visited and to meeting all our members during my term of office, should I be elected. In her message to us yesterday, Irene said, "We need to communicate better and make our voices heard. It is not about how we can benefit from ACWW, but what we can offer ACWW." Echoing the famous words of the late President John F. Kennedy at his inauguration, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask rather what you can do for your country." I know I have a lot to learn,
but I hope to be able to continue the work of this inspiring lady, Mrs. Irene Chinjay, in supporting our current members and increasing the presence of ACWW in this part of the world. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Claire, and thank you again to Irene, who approached you to make yourself available for this position. And like you said, we will soon know what the outcome of voting will be, because less than 2,200 days. Thank you, it's not only 20 days, it is still more than or less than 200 days at least. Remain for the 50th Biannual World Conference to take place in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Board members will be elected and will receive a mandate from the membership to lead ACWW for the next term of 3 years. The name of the area president for East, West, and Central Africa will be officially announced at the conference, and she will be given the honor to represent this area. ACWW has always appreciated the sharing of knowledge between members and giving more members the opportunity to be engaged with the work of ACWW. I would like now to call upon Mr. Nick Newland, the Advocacy Director and Chief Privacy Officer of ACWW, to address the conference on ACWW advocacy and engagement. And Nick, thank you very much for coming to this side of the camera. You know, we are just like while he's coming to the front part of this venue. We are really privileged to have members of staff at this conference, to play their role, but also to be here to support me and also to help us with the online and the streaming of this conference. So Nick is actually, sometimes he's behind the camera, and now it will be in front of the camera. So Nick, you are most welcome, and we're looking forward to what you would like to share with us about advocacy and engagement of ACWW.
Thank you very much. And I apologise to those watching on at home. We did have a momentary connection drop with our internet signal. Hopefully it's more stable now, but I do apologise that you lost a moment of the video earlier. So when we talk about advocacy at ACWW, it's a really big challenge because we're probably better known for our projects, even though we were founded to be an advocacy organisation. And one of the questions is always, what is advocacy? Why is it worth doing? How do we see the outputs? And it's really difficult. You can show with the project. If you take an example from yesterday, you know, if you take a group of orphans and you provide accommodation and schooling, then their lives get better. You can see the problem. You can see the amount of money it costs, you know, $100 a year per child, $100 a month per child, and you can see the outcomes. They have a home, they're going to school. It's really difficult to explain advocacy as a, here's a problem, here's a solution, and this is what we did to get to the solution, because we're not in charge. You know, we live in a world that has governments, and we live in a world that has governments who have agendas that aren't always for the best of women and certainly not for the best of communities. And so we also, though, can't not work with governments because they're in control. They run a country. We have to have dialogue. We have to have discussion. We have to have engagement. And so one of the real challenges is how do we show what impact we can have and why that work is important. So I'd like to try and pull some examples from this week. Yesterday, our speaker Miriam, talking about human trafficking, talked about the Palermo Agreement, the international document where governments all over the world came together and agreed definitions of trafficking, definitions of abuse, definitions of the problem, and set out what they would commit to see an end to it. Half an hour later, we hear her talking about the realities in Kenya. We have a guest speaker from Uganda come on Zoom and say, well, we have great laws. The problem is enforcement. So where does civil society organizations, where do groups like ACWW fall into that? Well, at the start of the week, we gave you all a copy of the blue CEDAW booklet, which are your rights as women, and particularly rural women. Every 5 years, every country that has signed CEDAW and committed to that and ratified it is examined at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. And the system is a convoluted one because, first of all, they send a letter to the government being examined and they say, please will you give us a report on how you think you're doing? Give us your homework, tell us what the reality is in your country. And then they go to all the civil society organizations like ACWW and they say, okay, now you tell us how you think the reality is. What do you see the picture as? And then everyone gets together in Geneva and the NGOs spend a day giving evidence about the reality of life. And the next day, 22 human rights experts and commissioners question the government. And I'm going to use an example from the UK because that was the last CEDAW examination that ACWW got involved in. On the first day, and I apologize that some of the topics I'm going to discuss are quite difficult and challenging, and I don't wish to upset anyone, but we have to have an understanding of the reality here. On the first day, one of the organizations present gave evidence to the council that in the UK they had changed the social security system. So if you don't have a job or if you need support, the government provides from your taxes some support. One of the changes that had been made was that you could only get support financially for 2 children. If you had more than 2 children, you couldn't get support for them. The only exception was that if the 3rd child had been conceived through rape. They didn't call it that. They called it the non-consensual conception clause. So not only have you suffered a horrendous attack and abuse, you then have to go to not a medical facility, not a police office, but a job centre, where you would normally go and ask for support looking for a job and tell the 20-year-old behind the desk what had happened to you and explain your entire situation to them. And so when this evidence was given, the next day the government was questioned and the government said, oh, well, it's this. And even the Human Rights Commissioners said, no, rape is a crime. Have the decency to call it what it is. If you're going to have this barbaric law, call it what it is. We gave evidence on the impact of fracking on rural communities in the UK. We gave evidence on rural transport and the lack of buses and accessible facilities and the lack of access to police stations in the UK from our members. We'd worked with our membership across England and Wales. They'd given us feedback. Our members in Scotland and Northern Ireland had done the same, and we presented this evidence. At the end of the examination, the commission produces a big report, and that's sent to the government, and it's basically, well, this is what we think the reality is. You've had your say, the NGOs and civil society have had their say, we are the experts and this is our view. And it's a general overview, and then at the end it's recommendations for action to make things better. And are you found in compliance or non-compliance? The UK was found non-compliant in 7 ways. We were breaking international law by choice in 7 different ways. That immediately sparked legal challenges in the UK by a team of lawyers who were sat in the room during the whole hearing, gathering evidence and preparation. And those legal challenges were then held in the High Court and won because an international body had said the UK was breaking international law. All of those laws were then forced to change. in the UK, including a ban on fracking, which until 6 weeks ago had remained in place for 4 years. Our new government 6 weeks ago changed it, but luckily our new government 2 weeks ago changed it back. Sometimes changing government every month is helpful. So, but that is a direct example of a legal challenge in, ostensibly a big Western government where things can change. I'll come to you in just a second. So why am I talking about all of this? Well, when we talk then about Palermo yesterday and human trafficking, when we talk about the International Labour Organization's Convention 190, which is on violence against women and girls, your countries have signed and ratified those agreements. They are rights you are supposed to have. CEDAW, every right in that booklet you are supposed to have. If you don't, you have the right to challenge your government. That's not easy, and it's not very easy to do on your own. And that's why, as a group, as an organization, as a global body, we work together to present that evidence through Human Rights Council, through the UN, through other bodies when we can, and to make sure that it's not just me going and arguing on your behalf, but wherever possible, we can bring your voices, whether that's online, whether that's on person, will depend on the reality of the moment. But ensuring that your testimony, your evidence is presented, but in a way that protects your identity and protects your safety, because we know that in many countries, criticizing a government is not a good lifestyle choice, shall we say. We know in 2019, ACWW helped coordinate the responses to the Cameroonian government at the UN on their high-level political forum response on the Sustainable Development Goals. If you had listened to the testimony of the Cameroonian government, you would believe the country was a holiday camp where everything was glorious and wonderful. When we had the evidence of our members detailing massacres, detailing systematic attacks, detailing abuses, and detailing political imprisonment, we were able to present a very different story, but without putting any of those women in direct risk or harm. So you can see, did we achieve peace in Cameroon the next day? Of course not. But was that situation highlighted on an international stage? Yes. Did after that hearing governments then impose some sanctions on the Cameroonian government? Yes. Has that yet solved the problem? No. It's a slow process. Talking is always going to be slower than violence or money. But it is the only way that things are ever going to change peacefully and equitably for women. So I will always be happy to answer questions here or as we go forwards. When we do things like the questionnaire the other day, it's to try and get an idea of reality. We also like talking to people. Tell us your stories, tell us your experiences, tell us your examples. We can help signpost people to the right services. It was great yesterday to see someone who had come forward and talked about their life experience, have the opportunity to speak to Miriam and be signposted to hopefully some resources that will make life a bit better. We can do that on an international stage, but we can also make sure that your voices are being heard outside of the country in a way that protects you, but that means things are being addressed. So conversation, dialogue, it's a slow process and it can be frustrating. And a lot of people say, oh, the UN, they don't do anything. But the problem with the UN is that it's not a government. The UN is a table. And around that table sit a lot of people. Imagine your biggest family gathering, Christmas, Easter, your birthday, whenever. You have 5, 10, 15, 20 people around the table. Do they all agree? No. Are there certain topics you don't discuss so you don't have a fight? Yes. But at the UN, those topics all get discussed. So there are fights. There are arguments. There are processes, and none of them seem very quick. And sometimes it is heartbreaking to see good work being traded off for political gain or financial gain by other governments. But that doesn't mean we have to stop. It means we have to try harder. So please, when we talk about ACWW's work, we have concerns, are aware of the situation. As we said 3 days ago, the reality on the ground is something that no one person globally can ever understand. But if we don't get told and we don't share that information and we don't pass it to others, then we can't ever address it. And that is something we are fully committed to. A question at the back.
Yes, you are referring to David Cameron.
Okay.
Now,
Are there any other questions, any thoughts? Jenny?
we should expand a bit more on how members can engage with publics
Yes,
where they can give their information.
absolutely. So it's an ongoing process. The difficulty with our advocacy work is we have to find the opportunities as they appear. Now, for a lot of the UN processes or a lot of the Human Rights Council processes, there's a cycle. So governments are examined every 3, 4, 5 years, or governments are presenting at certain commissions or meetings and not others. So when we see those coming up, when we see that countries are being examined, we will go to members in those areas and so, or in those countries and say, now is when we need to hear from you. Can you answer these questions? Can you tell us the truth? Can you tell us the reality? Can you give us information? Have you been consulted? Because the best trick in the world is government saying, well, we had great meetings with our civil society members and we have this. Now, I sat in a government meeting in the UK about 4 years ago. Myself, 4 other people and 3 government reps. And I thought it was an informal chat. A year later, I discovered that was presented to the United Nations as a comprehensive consultation with civil society on these issues. And I was thinking, I remember the coffee was pretty good. I don't remember that we discussed very much or were asked many questions, but the government had ticked a box and said they've had a consultation. So if you can then come and say, well, actually, no, we had great coffee with the local government, but there wasn't much discussed and no one asked us about trafficking, then we can address that. So the first thing will be, look at your emails. When we reach out to the areas, when we speak to the area presidents, when we speak to our coordinators, which is a nice segue into our next session, that's when we need to hear from. The other thing is, if things change in your communities, if you think something has changed for worse or for better, sometimes good news is lovely too, tell us. Send us an email, send me an email. I will leave my email here. Please don't just add me to mailing lists. Please don't just send me, Happy Tuesday. Here's a picture of something. Or you can always send me pictures of goats. I love goats. Baby goats especially, you can always send me pictures of. And elephants are also pretty cool. But if something changes in your community, the action we took on Cameroon and were able to present that was because we got a 4-page letter from a lady in Cameroon who detailed her exact situation in her village. And then that allowed us to start gathering other information and other evidence and work with ladies in Cameroon, some of whom were ACWW members, some of whom weren't. We have a responsibility to act in the best interests of all rural women. We're not going to say we're going to help you because you're not a member. Our members are the portal to finding those communities so that we can help. So I will make sure everyone has my email address. The area president will be a conduit. The coordinators will be a conduit. If you have concerns, if you have questions, if you just want to know how the Human Rights Council works, fine, send me an email. We'll have a chat. If you, as I say, if certain things get worse or if things happen, let us know. The positives, though, are also helpful. If you've been aware of a situation and something has changed and it's got better, that's helpful feedback because nothing a government likes more than sitting at the UN and being told by an NGO, we really welcome the new plan for rural women. And they go, oh, great, we've done well. And then you say, we would love it if Section 4 were a lot stronger. And we would love it even more if Section 6 were actually enforced by the police. In the UK, as that example from earlier, we have a very high reporting rate of sexual violence. We have a very low prosecution rate of sexual violence. When you look in rural communities, 36% of rural villages in the UK do not have a police station within an hour and a half's travel. If you do have a local police station, if you've been assaulted by your violent husband, and you have to go to the police station and report that to one of your husband's drinking buddies, are you actually safe? Is your life actually going to get better? No. So governments have to have processes that allow for the reality of rural communities. It's not the same as cities. You can't just go to the next police station down the road. You can't just get a bus along to the next place. We have to have specific mechanisms that support rural women. And that's why Article 14 in CEDAW is so important, because they are, in addition to everything else, we've helpfully put it in the middle of the book. They are the bits that make a real difference specifically to rural communities. Is CEDAW perfect? No. It's 40 years old. The world has changed, the world has developed. There are additional bits that have been added to it over the years. These days, we are seeing more pushback from governments on women's rights than we have seen at any point since the 1970s. We have seen governments legalize domestic violence. We have seen governments ban any discussion over abortion or maternal health care in any scenario. We have seen governments create sanctions against governments in countries where they are trying to help women because they are trying to discuss maternal health care. So all of these things have to be challenged, and we can only do that with your support and with your input and with your voices. You will never be ignored. We may not have an immediate avenue to take action. We may not have an immediate pathway, but what we will do is hold that evidence and contact others and contact governments and contact processes and mechanisms and say, this isn't acceptable. What are you going to do about it? So hopefully we hear, and I look forward to hearing from you as we go on. And obviously if there are questions, happy to answer them now or later.
Are there more questions? Yes, over there, please.
Thank you for your presentation, Nick. This little booklet, which is the most important human rights treaty for women, has been signed and ratified by certain countries, and then it has been signed and not ratified by some. To what extent are you engaging with the countries that have signed and not ratified? And what does it mean to sign and not ratify?
So just for those at home who may not have heard, the question is, with the CEDAW booklet, which you can download from our website as well, there are a list of countries who have signed and ratified. There is a list of countries who have signed but not ratified, and there are a list of countries who have not signed or ratified. And what is or can ACWW do to influence those countries? So the signing process is yes, we think this is a great idea. The ratifying is a commitment to incorporating it into domestic law. Now, some countries cheat and they say, we're going to ratify with certain exceptions. So we won't do this bit, or this bit. And I mean, some countries sign it and ratify it and then ignore it. But some of them are at least honest about, we're not going to do this bit or this bit. Some haven't signed it at all. The list of countries that haven't signed or ratified is only 7. And it might be a guessable list. If we had a whiteboard and a marker, we could probably start guessing the countries that haven't signed or ratified. And part of the difficulty with our conversation yesterday is that many of the countries that are being discussed as problematic yesterday are also countries who have not signed or ratified CEDAW and similar processes. There are some countries, like the USA, who have refused to sign or ratify because at the time the argument was not because they felt that the treaty was bad or that they felt they couldn't agree with it, but because they refused to allow American citizens to be held accountable by other governmental processes. So their argument is, we don't recognize the Human Rights Council and the Human Rights Court, therefore we won't sign or ratify a document. It's the same reason the US has never signed the International Criminal Tribunal. It's never stopped them sending lawyers, and it's never stopped them bringing prosecutions against other countries, interestingly. But with signing and ratifying, the idea is that you commit in your own country to actually enact those laws. In terms of what we can do to apply pressure, it's a little bit challenging because, not least of which, it's a 40-year-old declaration. It's a 40-year-old process. So in some ways, because it's not so up to date, governments have even more reason not to ratify. They say, we don't need to ratify it because we've ratified ILO 190 on violence against women and girls, or we've ratified the Istanbul Convention, or we've ratified the Palermo Agreement. So we don't spend a vast amount of time harassing people to commit to CEDAW. What we do is spend time harassing them to commit to their commitments within CEDAW. Our argument is, so for example, the UK hadn't ratified the Istanbul Convention. And their argument was, well, we weren't able to ratify it because although we signed it and we agree with it and we believe it, we have certain domestic laws that are in contradiction with the convention. And until we've repealed those laws or changed those laws, we can't ratify the convention because we won't be in compliance. That has slowly changed over the last few years. So it's always a discussion with those governments, but we do, if I can use an example from Russia, the Russian Federation last October, often the difficulty is there is a very low level of understanding of these conventions within governments. We had a meeting in Moscow with a very senior minister who had responsibility for women's rights. After a very jolly meeting, I said, I was very interested. I've read your last 5 submissions to CEDAW, and I've read the last 5 responses from the CEDAW Commission. Do you actually engage with your rural women and ask them for input? Oh, no, but we would if they would like to. If they ask us, we'll let them. I said, do you understand that it is a statutory obligation of the convention that you have to hold consultations with women in your country? No. This is the minister who has responsibility for the rights of rural women. So it's an educational process as well as a confrontation one often, and that's we do our best to attack and to not attack governments, attack the process. Sorry, terminology.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Any other questions? Well, if not, Nick, I would like to thank you for the way in which you so clearly explained the role of advocacy in ACWW, and also the role and responsibility of our societies. I would like to thank you for the responsible way in which you approach your role within ACWW. We are most grateful. Thank you very much. So our members are aware of the new strategy announced in February this year, when the board decided to have a new approach about how we would like to have engagement from our members, greater engagement, because we received requests from members who said they would like to be more engaged in the work of ACWW. And how can we make provision for that? So therefore, it was decided to introduce the coordinator scheme in ACWW. So our next speaker will join us online from Central Office to introduce to you the process and the way we are going to work with coordinators from societies in future. Joining us, I think now, is Sydney Salter, the Membership and Engagement Officer of ACWW. And I'm very pleased to welcome Sydney on this occasion and for her to be joining us online. Sydney, there you are. I can see you. Good morning to you. And,
good morning.
We are really looking forward to your presentation and your participation today in this conference. You're most welcome, and we are looking forward and listening to you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Fantastic. All right. As Mogdi said, thank you for that introduction, Mogdi. My name is Sydney, and I am the Communications and Engagement Officer for ACWW. One of the things within my scope is the coordinator program. And many of the, well, all of the member societies would have received a mail out earlier this year calling for you to assign a coordinator. Now, in this mail out was a load of information, including the responsibilities and the support that would be offered. But one of the things that I think that is really important to talk about that has been addressed at various points throughout the conference is the motivation behind why the coordinator program was brought in and how effective it's already being. One of the main challenges that we found with reaching our member societies is that we are unable to get right into the grassroots of our membership. So I recall Nick explaining that for instance, in the UK, we have large umbrella organizations that then are made up of smaller groups and yet even smaller groups, and reaching down to the members who are in those smaller groups right in the grassroots has always been very difficult because information seems to stop at the top. So one of the ways that we wanted to address this was to say, it would be great if each member society had someone whose responsibility it was to make sure that ACWW information reached the members of that society. And not only that, but made sure that when time comes for doing things like Nick has just been talking about, coordinating responses to surveys or making sure that that the voices of our members are heard at an international level, those coordinators can also act as a link between members on the ground and us at ACWW who have the platform to be able to amplify their voices. So that's a little bit about the background, the motivation. Just a couple of technical questions that I often get, a couple of clarifying things. Each member society, so that is a group or organization that holds their own membership with ACWW, is welcome to nominate a coordinator. Now, when I say nominate, that is because there is a nomination form, and then that nomination goes to the Board of Trustees, the ACWW Board of Trustees, to be reviewed. And then if that person is approved, they are then invited to join the coordinator network. Now, the reason I call it a network is because we have monthly meetings with other coordinators in the area and globally to be able to share best practice, to be able to talk about things like fundraising, but also to be able to talk about things like the reality of life in each of the areas. I thought it was very interesting at our first coordinator meeting. We were discussing logistics because I really wanted to get down into how the coordinators themselves saw the program working. And one of the things that they were very keen on was that they not lose the global effect of having that network. So I had originally suggested that the meetings would take place between coordinators in each area. And they said, no, we'd like to meet with the coordinators in our area to talk about the specific issues facing our area, but we also want to make sure that we continue to meet with people from all over the world so that we can learn from each other and so that we can share about our lives, but also so that we are representative of this global membership. So the way that it works now is that 1 month we have a meeting with the area president and all of the coordinators in the area. And then the next month we have a meeting with any member of the board who attends, who is able to attend that meeting, and all of the coordinators around the world together. So the timing can often be quite awkward for that. But the great thing is we're able to move around the world as far as the meeting times. And so I believe for the next coordinator meeting, we're actually focused on us making it easier for our members in the South Pacific to attend. And so it's an awkward timing for our members in the US, but everybody's usually very accommodating for that. Just to go over a little bit of what the coordinators do. They are responsible for distributing ACWW information to their societies. As I've just mentioned, they attend a coordinator meeting with the area president and central office. They do things like organize an event for Women Walk the World. They coordinate responses from the society to surveys and requests for information. They encourage fundraising and donations. They encourage individual membership among the members of the member society. They facilitate participation in ACWW events. And by that, I mean virtual events that we put on. Some of you may remember the events for the Commission on the Status of Women that we put on last year. I don't know if those have been mentioned at the conference, but it was an opportunity for our members to participate in the commission and the numerous parallel, Nick will correct me if I'm wrong about parallel versus side, parallel events that we put on for that. So those are the sorts of things that it would be great for the coordinator to facilitate participation in. That may look like hosting a load of women in an internet cafe or in your home to all sit down and watch the event together. Or it may look like just making sure that they're aware of the information and have access to the right links. It really depends on your area. And the last responsibility is that they attend training and information sessions. This is really important because, as I've just mentioned with the facilitation of participation in ACWW events, the reality at a grassroots level for our members all over the world changes depending on where you are in the world. It's very, very, very different. And so it's so important that in order for me to be able to provide support, in order for me to be able to provide resources and to provide information in a way that is understandable and relevant to your area, I need to hear from you. I need to hear what you need. That can look like, for instance, I've just got an email today that's asking for a specific kind of pop-up banner because they want to go around and do talks. It can also mean, for instance, I'm working with a coordinator in America right now who says that a lot of the phrasing that we've used is very British, and she wonders if we can perhaps make it a bit more American so that it's more relevant to her area. So it's things like that that I know make the difference to people being able to understand ACWW's message and aims. But unless we're told that these things are needed, we can't respond to those needs. That's why the coordinator program is so important. The sorts of support that we can offer coordinators include personalized presentations, regular meetings with the world president, area president, and staff, even technical assistance. I do a lot of technical assistance now, which is great fun. I have brainstorming meetings with my coordinators individually and as groups about how to best engage members in their area with our work and our aims, and full virtual training. So we'll never leave you on your own to be a coordinator. A lot of training happens ad hoc and casually in our information sessions, but we also have loads in our meetings, but we also have loads of guidelines and things like that, and more guidelines being produced as people tell us what they need. So that is a bit about the coordinator program. We also, just to mention, there is a code of conduct that's included with that coordinator program. So the reason for that code of conduct is that the coordinators are responsible to ACWW, and we are responsible for everything that everyone says about us and on our behalf. And so that code of conduct just allows us to be able to make sure that everyone is speaking about us in a way that is accurate, in a way that is in line with the ethics statement that Mogdi mentioned earlier in the conference, and in a way that is going to promote our overall aims and objectives. So that's all that is. It is included in the nominations form, which I believe Jenny has printouts of. And so if you're a representative of a member society at the conference and think that you should be appointed or nominated to be a coordinator, then you can take that back and work with the relevant person in your member society to be able to fill that in and send it to me, and we can make sure that the board have an eye of that at their next meeting. So I think that's all I've got about coordinators. Jenny, Nick, have I missed anything out?
Well, Sydney, thank you very much for what you said. I'm just, please stay with us, because I would like to give an opportunity for any questions. If someone has a question on this new program of ours, before we will continue, or if Jenny, if you would like to add anything.
No, I think.
Yeah. I think Sydney covers about everything. And of course, during the time at this conference, and even now when we will be having our tea break, please come to us, speak to us about this. And they will also, like Sydney mentioned, there are these forms for you to please collect from Jenny. Have a look at that, speak to us, because we really, really need your input and your contribution for us to make this program to be successful. So, Sydney, thank you very much for being available this morning to share information on the ACWW coordinator scheme. I would like to mention that Sydney has very successfully taken up this added responsibility to be the administrator for this coordinator scheme of ours. And I thank you sincerely, Sydney, for your contributions. And thank you also for being available this morning on short notice to be here with us and to also play a role at this conference. Thank you. And please enjoy the rest of your day. I will not mention anything why it is a special day for you, Sydney. And I can see your face now. You must be pleased for me to hint that it's your birthday.
Thank you all. Thank you.
I will soon be meeting Sydney in a few days almost, and then she might tell me that she was not so pleased for me to mention this. But thank you, Sydney, for the good spirit. We are now moving on because it is almost time for us to break to have refreshments and tea. But at this stage, I would like to mention, I received a call this morning from Dr. Marina Miller. She is the area president of your neighboring area, the Southern Africa area. And Marina wished me to tell you that she's really wishing us well for this conference. She's pleased to know that it went well, and she's always there for her fellow area presidents to be sharing information and knowledge and just supporting this area, who is just, well, right across the border, although many, many kilometers from here. Marina Miller lives in Namibia, and she is the area president for the Southern Africa area, as I mentioned. So she wanted me to let you have this message from her. I would like to invite everybody now for tea and refreshments. Again, so generously serving to us by the members the State Society, and we a little ahead of our time. And so I think just before we break, may I suggest if there is anything anybody would like to mention at this stage, because after tea we will be wrapping up our conference. So if there's anything you would like to share with me or share with your fellow attendees, then we can come back after tea to discuss something, or even if you just like to mention the fact that you, well, enjoyed it here, or something that you would like to be followed after this conference. Are there any questions or any input? Yes, thank you very much.
What I wanted to share is that we're all women, and I go out to various boonies, as we call it here, and the women always think that they're poor, and they're not poor. A lot of them, in particular where I come from, the Rift Valley, luckily the drought has not got to us yet, so they can still produce food. And I think one of the most important things that the rural women in this country, and I think in a lot of other countries, and I certainly see it in the UK, is they're farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that somebody told me once, and I always repeat it, is that we need a doctor maybe 2 or 3 times a year, if we're unfortunate. We need a priest maybe once a week, but we need a farmer 3 times a day.
Yes.
And so I always want to sort of say how important the rural women are to everybody, but particularly to those that live in the cities. Yes. That's right. Thank you. And thank you. And I just wanted to thank you so much. This whole conference has been so helpful.
Thank you very much. Yes, you are so right. You know, there's a bumper sticker in South Africa, and I often see it when I drive. It says, "Have you eaten today?" And then the rest of the sentence. So thank the farmers, and that is so true. So very often the role of farmers are perhaps not respected in the way we should. And you are right. When we have the opportunity to eat and produce food, how blessed are we? And we have also, within our societies in South Africa, we promote people making their own, we call it kitchen gardens, because you really need a very limited space to produce some fresh vegetables to be eaten. And so that is something also to be encouraged, even if there's a very small space. You can make a plan to have something there for yourself to eat, or even to share with your neighbors. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
I think you will find that in this country you are preaching to the converted. Because if you drive out of Nairobi, most places along the road, you will find that somebody has dug, even at the side of the road, dug a little tap and planted some puma or whatever it is they eat. And literally on the side of the road, our women here know that it is very important for them, because so many of them don't have any other resources. So I have a story to tell you. Many of you won't remember this. You may not even picked up on it, but years ago in the Daily Nation, I read an article about an NGO that had gone up somewhere north, like Turkana or somewhere where it was really dry, and they had built an irrigation system and for a village. And that village ended up not only growing enough vegetables and fruits for its own consumption, but also to sell to the surrounding villages who hadn't had the fortune to get this irrigation system. And they were thereby making money for the village to develop. So it's very important that we support anything in that area, in that sort of area of cultivation, irrigation, and all those things, because we need to grow our own food. if this country grew its own food everywhere in the country, we wouldn't have to import a single item of foodstuffs, but it doesn't because the infrastructure is not in place.
Thank you for that contribution, and it is good to hear that people are doing this, like we mentioned, to know the importance of taking care of oneself, even if it is to use the spaces which do not belong to us, because why can we not do that? There was some contribution over here. Yes, please.
I don't know whether it is contribution, but I just wanted to appreciate the fact that my team from the league was able to attend this conference. It's been such a learning experience for me, and especially listening to reports from the various countries represented. There is a lot to learn. My concern is how we can stay connected after this conference,
Yes.
especially with participants here and those who are online, because I think it was very impressive for me to see the participation of young women and their presentations and the wonderful work that they are doing, whether that was the young woman from Kimilili, where is she? Yeah. Or the young woman from Buruburu, or the young woman from Saifan. Congratulations, you're doing wonderful work. I was also very happy to see how you got yourselves immersed into the conference, beginning with a bit of fear and then opening up and becoming one with us. And that is how it works. And I can only pray that moving forward, you will develop into wonderful women for this country. You know that we have a member of parliament who is only 24, the one we call Toto. And so you are our Totos here. I pray that you continue to develop. I also want to say how privileged we are to have Claire nominated. Claire, I think this is really a blessing for us, especially us from the league, because now we cannot complain that we don't know about ACWW. You are right here, and I think you have a big job to do. Yeah, I think we should, moving forward, look for ways and means of having a mini ACWW here and sharing the information, and maybe looking up for new activities that we can do together as women from the league. Thank you very much. I think I was very impressed by the way that you're Magda. Are you Magda?
Marty, yes,
Magda.
I am.
The way that you facilitated this meeting, I think you made it very easy for us to just plug in and express our thoughts, whether they were wonderful or not wonderful. It's very easy to interact when the person sharing is calm and seems to say, "Oh, you're welcome. Just say it. It's okay." So thank you very much for sharing the meeting for us, and for your staff, Jamie and Nick, for all the information that you have shared with us. I imagine it is not very easy doing the physical and the virtual, and also being on this side and that side at the same time. So thank you very much. I don't know, I feel very happy. It has been wonderful being here, and I can only hope that we shall keep in touch, all of us who are here, and see how we can, what is it? Iron sharpens iron, or something like that. But very, very finally, I want to thank the league, because we are here sponsored by our various branches. And if it was not for that sponsorship, maybe we would not have been here. So again, through Claire, thank you very much for making sure that we are here. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your support and also the support you have now declared for the candidate for your area. It is much appreciated. Yes, and with the coordinator scheme and with the input of your area president, there will be continuous interaction and connectivity here. So I'm so happy that you mentioned it. And when you said you're happy to be here, I would like to say that is music to my ears. Thank you for that. Yeah, there's another hand. Yes, please. We still have a few minutes. I would like to share with us your thoughts.
Thank you so much for giving me yet another chance to talk. I'm really very, very grateful for this conference. I traveled all along from my village, Arua. Actually, from Kampala to Arua is around 10 hours drive. Then again, 10 or 9 hours drive to Nairobi is such a very long time. My expectation when I was coming was, one, to meet new friends, then to have connections to my organization. As I told you earlier, I started this organization in 2017. Up to now, actually, financially, I've not been funded. In 2019, I tried to apply in ACWW, but I couldn't go through, maybe for one reason or the other. So for that reason, I'm really very happy to have new friends. I'm just trying to put my voice across that I don't know how else you can connect us to some other funders or donors so that our projects can be supported. That is one. Then secondly, I've also learned a lot here. We should not always depend on donations of funders outside. We can locally fundraise. And actually, that is also another area I need to have a lot of knowledge so that I can do local fundraising. You know, here in Africa, especially in my place, we tend to think that money which comes from another place is better than what we can do. We are so poor that we cannot even support each other. That is the challenge we are having, but I've really learned a lot from this conference. Then we are trying to look at how we can have also such in Kampala so that we as women, we can put our heads, we can come from very different backgrounds from our organizations, and then we put things together like this. Because some of these conferences, they are very expensive to attend in terms of transport. So maybe if we could do it locally, I don't know how it will happen, but it will really be very good if we have ACWW branch Kampala, so that we can be able to mobilize and coordinate with those other women. Then another thing I read about this nomination for coordinator. Yeah, you need to be a member to be nominated. I don't know if that's true. Then what about some of us who have not yet registered or have no membership in ACWW, but we are intending to do in the shortest time? Where do we fall? Thank you.
Yes, it's Nikki who would answer the question there. I was not exactly sure because it's a little late, but please, you do better later. Thank you.
Thank you, Noddy. I'm not going to spin the camera around to myself. I will point it back at you. No one needs to see my face that close this early in the morning. So the question, the second half of the question was about coordinators, yeah, and whether individuals need to be members before they can join us as coordinators, and how that works if they're not already. Excuse me. So yes, the idea of the coordinators and really when you talk about like an ACWW branch, Kampala, the idea of the coordinators is that you become that branch. You know, we're not expecting everyone to set up an actual physical office and all of that, but there would never be, the reality is that we would never be able to have offices everywhere. So the idea of the coordinators is that once you're a member, you become a coordinator for your society or for your member organization, and then you are that branch, you know, with the area presidents, with the staff, with the world president, we can provide you information, support, networking opportunities, and discussion. So, for example, we were talking yesterday, I think Sid's still online, so I will just see if she starts shaking her head furiously. But yesterday over dinner, Jenny, the world president, and I were discussing, you know, how can we support HART and their work in a way that, you know, realistically, we can't give them a vast amount of money to strengthen what they're doing, but how can we help them? So if on our website, we have a page of resources, a page of people like HART, like each of your organizations that we can show people and signpost. You can connect, you can network. The area president helps that networking, but you can also then say, hi, does anyone else, you know, go to a coordinators meeting for the ESAT at West Central Africa and say, look, I've got this problem. Does anyone else know what I can do about this? Or has anyone else had this experience? Has someone else found a solution or a suggestion? Or does anyone know the lunch vouchers are the perfect example? 4 days ago, we sat here, or five days ago, we sat here and said, oh, we need lunch vouchers for everyone. Right, well, we'll do them on the computer and then we'll print them off. Well, it turns out that Christine, who works at the League, her sister runs a print shop. And suddenly we had these very nice lunch vouchers here. But everyone knows people, everyone has ideas, everyone has contacts and networking. So the idea of the coordinators is to strengthen the network by being able to share information. So yes, you do have to be a member, because at the end of the day, we are a member organization. Yes. You know, we're only a global network if people are in the network. But once you're in the network, we do everything we can to strengthen things. In terms of signposting to external funding, I don't know if Jenny wants to come in, but it is something that has occasionally been done in the past. In the late 90s, ACWW had a lot of applications for funding around AIDS and HIV treatment, which is expensive. And we weren't able to fund it because we didn't have the money and we didn't have any expertise. So what we did with those projects was, rather than doing them badly, we were able to find other organizations who did fund those people and make introductions, or say, this is a great organization that does a good amount of work and have a big budget. Here is their website, here is their information. You know, look at them if you need this kind of thing. I can't commit to being able to do that for every topic and for every organization, because there's too many and it's too much, and we only have a very small team in the office. But I do think that's where, forgive me, Mary, you know, one of the conversations I had with Mary yesterday, you know, she said that she found an organization who had funded some things. Well, lots of people in the room have found little bits of funding or big bits of funding from organizations, and sharing that experience through that network can help find ways of supporting. You know, we would very much love to support every project we see and every member society with a huge amount of money, but our budget is not big. If you go on our website, you can see our accounts. Our budget is not big. And so we rely on the strength of our members and our people and our human capital to make as big an impact as we possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nick. Mary, you would like to say something? Yes.
1 second, I'll get that. Maybe, there we are.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. And as I said, I'm Mary, and I'm.
Can you speak up a bit? Now,
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And as I said, I'm Mary. I'm a founder of an organization called Mama Africa Pendo, as we support the children, the women, and the elderly to be able to grow more in the society. It's a great opportunity for me because I've not been in any of the ACWW meetings. I've not been in the Women's League any meeting. But at the same time, we have been able to make some big steps and some big miles. So what I can say is information is power. And like, as I look at this cup, you may see a cup, me, I never see a cup. I see what the cup can hold. Because you can choose to drink water or tea or coffee or something else with the cup. So when we come here, we have come so that we can be able to think better and to be able to take things more better. That when we come out of here, we don't wait for another meeting for ACWW or for the Women's League so that we can move. But every opportunity, each hour in our life is an opportunity for us to make a difference. So I take this opportunity like a golden opportunity, and I believe as women, we have the power. And I believe that we can make big miles if we work together as a team. So I believe if the opportunity that has been given to us, that we can be able to join hands together, even the one who is asking about the organization and everything, for me, I believe I can knock any office and they listen to me. Because like last year, I was able also to partner with the Safaricom Kenya. It's the power that you have, believe in yourself. Because when you believe in yourself, we are able to do more. We have not existed for more than 5-6 years now. But I believe what we are doing, now we're able to reach hundreds of women. What I have, because I have the skills, I can utilize my skills to help somebody before the money comes. I can utilize what I have to help someone. So like every Saturday, I take the whole day to teach women on women to business, to give them business ideas in the slums. It doesn't mean that even if I'm not being paid, it will make me better. So even if I go to sleep on that Saturday, I don't add value. So it's a matter of adding value every day in life. And I'm so encouraged when I see women who are a little bit more younger, is it younger or elder than I, that they are still working. And for us young people, young women, you are not even in the 5th floor. And you are complaining that you are tired. You are complaining that you are old. People are going for presidency at their 70 years. So what are we retiring to do? Because I believe if I go to the village, I cannot manage because I'm not used to that lifestyle. So we need to build a better and a stronger society. Wow. So I'm proud to have met you all, and I'm sure this is just a beginning. I'm a motivation speaker, so that's, I have to make sure I control myself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And on that inspiring note, I would like us to now adjourn, and we will have tea. And please come back in about 30 minutes time.
Please let
and
me
then we
ask
can
a question.
continue. Yes, yes.
Please, I'm sorry.
You know,
I should have asked this earlier. I don't seem to have a clear concept of the coordinators.
Okay.
Because ACWW works through geographical areas. Mm-hmm. So when we are talking about coordinators, are we talking about geographical area coordinators or country coordinators?
Okay, I'll tell you what, we are now breaking for tea, yeah, and I would love to have a conversation with you. Yes. And we will also let you have our form, and then I can inform you even better, because it is very important for me that we will leave this conference to have clarity about the matters we have discussed here. So I'll be very pleased to continue this conversation during tea break. Thank you. All right, then enjoy your tea and please be back within 30 minutes so that we can continue.
Mary.
Thank you very much. Nick has just given me the indication that we can start so that we are sure everybody is online who wishes, who want to be online. And for the rest of us, we have just enjoyed a very nice tea and coffee break and biscuits to eat. So thank you very much for the people who served us these refreshments. And we are now getting closer and closer to the end of our conference. And it's actually, it fills me with a little bit of sadness because, would you believe it, when I came here on Tuesday, well, I actually arrived earlier, but when I met you all on Tuesday, it felt as if I arrived as a stranger. But today, I will leave as a friend. So it is almost sad for me to know that we are coming to the conclusion of our conference. At this time, I would like to mention the names of the societies and the representatives of these societies in the room today. Thank you very much for everybody who took the effort to come here to this conference. We have the East Africa Women's League, the Social Justice League, the Kuwedu Conference, the Mama Africa Kendo, the Bura Women and Orphans Initiative for Sustainable Development, the Kikapu Garden, Silk Fund Africa, the East African Women's League Lavington branch, the Lenana Girls High School, the East African Women's League City branch, the Beats and Beads, and also Women Grow Uganda. Then online, people joined us from Give Them Hope, from the Heritage Charity Foundation, In Need Home, African Women's Resilience Initiative, the Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association, Sinta Foundation is the next one, Hope Foundation for African Women, the Kenjojo Association of Women Development Actors, and then also the Tanzania People Development Organization. Or do you say Tanzania? Please help me. Tanzania, pardon me. Thank you very much. Tanzania People Development Organization. And also ACWW. And then the audible stream, the individuals online are Paul Moria and Rose Kinutia. So I'm very glad that we are able to acknowledge you all for being here and for taking part in this event. So this now brings me to the thanks and the acknowledgements I would like to offer. So I know Irene Chinje, our area president, is online. Therefore, I would like to say Honorable Area President, Honorable President of the Hostess Society, Mrs. Susie Edwards, right here next to me, honorable members of the affiliated societies of this area, I have just mentioned, and also Mr. Nick Newland, as well as Ms. Jenny Sellers from Central Office, and then also the observers on virtual platforms attending this final part of the area conference. New technologies are certainly transforming our lives and giving us the ability to stay connected through these challenging times. We just have to seize all these opportunities and make the most of it. And we did today and yesterday, as well as the day before. Many parties have contributed to this successful conference, and as requested by the area president, it is my privilege to take this opportunity to present appreciation and thanks and to acknowledge the assistance of so many people at this conference. So today, I want to thank and applaud the area president, Mrs. Irene Chinje, for her virtual attendance and for calling an online and hybrid conference giving members the opportunity to gather together in person or join online or to follow the live stream program with one purpose, which was to discuss the business of this area and to give an opportunity for its members to connect and to celebrate friendship and to celebrate their interest in the work of ACWW. So one member said today, you would like to be connected and to stay connected and to continue this friendship being built here in the previous few days. So this is going to happen because that is what ACWW is also about. Is about connecting and actually strengthening the ties of friendship. I certainly want to commend everybody who has made this hybrid conference possible. So thank you again to the members of staff here with me in Nairobi, Nick Newland, Jenny Sellers, and also the Executive Director in the office in London, Tish Collins and Sydney Salter, who organized and facilitated the virtual process of this online event. To our dear members attending this conference on various digital platforms, a sincere thank you to you. We've just listened this morning how we were told of many of you who traveled many hours to come here. And I was just telling my friend, I also traveled 10 hours, but at least it was in the comfort of an airplane, even though we were packed in like sardines. It doesn't matter, but I know many of you have to return home in buses packed with people, many hours. I do appreciate it. I certainly do from the bottom of my heart. So thank you for everyone who made an effort to be here at this conference. I want to extend my thanks to the affiliated societies of this area for sharing your society's reports. It was most informative and interesting to listen to your reports informing us about everything you are doing in your societies to forward the work of this area in general and of ACWW in particular, because that is what you are doing here. You are really contributing to a worldwide women's organization who have your best interests at heart. And as the board and as being the representative of the board at this meeting, I can assure you, we are doing everything we can to ensure the future of ACWW and the benefit of our members. Last but not least, it is my privilege to thank Mrs. Susie Edwards and the members of the East Africa Women's League for the gracious and generous way you hosted this conference. And then in particular, I would like to mention Mrs. Claire Yetwa for her participation and the role you played, Claire. Over the past few weeks, we met very frequently online, but it was so good to me when I came here on Tuesday and I received a warm hug from Claire. It really warmed my heart, and it is now so good for me to know how we spend many hours in organizing this conference. And just look how successful this has been. So thank you very much. I would like to hand you a token of our appreciation from the board side and from me. Please accept this book. It is our I know you will, and you will always be reminded of the way we work together, and actually the wonderful way we work together. It was a pleasure working with you. Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much. So the area president, Irene Chinjay, will now have the opportunity to conclude this area conference with her closing speech. And I'm sure she will be on our screen in a moment. We are looking forward to seeing you again this morning.
Yes, Magdi, thank you so much. My dear friends, members, colleagues, and guests, please understand that my heart is broken, not to be with you today in person, but I'm delighted that we've all been able to come together with a combination of a gathering in Nairobi, and of course, with so many of us joining online, including guests from outside the area. We've made history this week, as is the first ever hybrid area conference in ACWW history, surpassing the challenges presented by COVID-19, ill health, and all the obstacles that have presented themselves since 2018. During this triennium, many areas had to hold digital conferences, but we've taken this a step further and taken a step forward together as an area. At our last conference, you presented many concerns and the issue from your communities and the issues from your communities. I hope this week has shown that your voices were heard. We've invited speakers this week to discuss issues you raised. We've retained the discussion session that you asked for the last time. We've seen our resolutions to the board was accepted, and we've seen that our members are spreading the word and our area is growing as we meet new women, new sisters, and new communities. I'm grateful that each of us has made an effort and committed to be here today. If you are in Nairobi, if you are on Zoom or following us online, please know that you have contributed to this conference, and I'm grateful to that. I would like to thank our guest speakers from Heart and Clean Start Kenya for their effort in joining us and bringing such important information to all of us. I would like to thank Patricia from the UN FAO, not only for joining us as our keynote speaker on Tuesday, but also for being a strong and resilient voice for the empowerment of women, a sister from Cameroon, and showing international systems how talented and impressive the women of our area can be as she works in Papua New Guinea. I'm also so proud of our hostess society, the East African Women's League. I would like to thank their national president, Susie Edwards, for graciously agreeing to host us, to Claire Jedwa for coordinating the efforts that have come together for this wonderful event. I'm so grateful. And I know you will be a worthy and impressive successor in the role of area president. I would like to thank our staff members who've joined us this week, alongside assessing projects and engaging with members across the area. They have helped with the delivery of this conference, and of course, the technical side too. Finally, my great thanks and sincerest respect go to our world president, Mrs. Magdi de Kock, who has joined us, of course, in her official role, but also helped me personally by standing in and chairing this conference. Before I hand the microphone back to her, I'll implore all of us present that the World Conference is not too far, and our next area conference is still not too far. We need to start preparing now to be able to be more participative, to be more a representation at our next area conference. If you start saving now, wherever the conference is to hold, you'll be able to make it to. It is very important. We've seen the values of this conference, and our personal presentation is of value to us, rather than being apart. If you are there, you commit, you make new friends, and you meet others, and you're able to expand your network, and some of the challenges you're having, you'll be able to overcome. So with that, I'll hand back to the world president, but I hope to see you all in person soon, perhaps at the next World Conference in Malaysia or in our area very soon. Thank you and stay strong. We are Rural Women in Action, and we are together. ACWW, we are together. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you for your meaningful words. And yes, we are indeed Rural Women in Action. And I'm also looking forward to know where the next area conference of this area will be taking place. But that will be for the societies and the next area president to be elected to decide upon that. And then the board of ACWW will receive the information. So we are now at the end, and it is my privilege to do the closing, the official closing of this conference. Dear members of East, West, and Central Africa, like I said, this auspicious event has now come to a close. This conference was attended by many locals, as well as many members from other areas of the world. We wanted to listen to your authoritative voice on health services. We wanted to know what's going on in this area about education, the environment, and social issues in the rural sector of this area. We wanted to learn from you, and I can assure you we did. I mentioned it yesterday, but because it's always making such an impact on me, I would like to repeat again the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I now realize that by going together, this area will go far and even beyond your expectations. May you always experience the true meaning of ACWW friendship, and may you strive to focus on the ACWW objectives to relieve poverty, to relieve sickness, and to protect and to preserve health, and to acknowledge the advancement of education. With these words, this area conference is now officially closed. And we will now listen once again to the beautiful music of the Song of Peace. And with that, we are leaving you, and you are staying behind, and I'm going on, but I will spread the friendship and the goodwill I receive from this area. Thanks again. Thank you very much.